Welcome to the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast, presented to you by Hetra University. If you've landed here, you're probably passionate about how horses help people. Whether you're an instructor, therapist, in the business, or have experienced equine assisted services yourself, we're glad you're here. Join us as we talk about the benefits, the science, to-dos, how-tos, and all of the reasons why what we do is so much more than just a pony ride. And now, from the Hetra campus in Gretna, Nebraska, here's your host, occupational therapist Katie King.
Hey everyone. Okay, today's guest is super special. It's sort of twofold, so it's an inspirational, sort of feel-good story, but it's also full of awesome tips for anybody out there who's interested in making something or producing something, or even just starting a business of your own in this equestrian world. As we know, that can be tricky and kind of scary. So my guest today is Frankie Lovato. Frankie created the Equisizer and owns his business, the Wooden Horse Corporation. I really can't tell you guys enough about how much we love and use our Equisizer at Hetra. If you're like, Katie, what is that? Briefly, it's a beautiful handmade mechanical horse, and we call him EQ at our barn. He rolls and rocks and moves so that we really can create a similar feeling to riding in our participants that might not be able to ride a real horse yet. So they might be scared, it might be physical ability, limitations. It might be for training or for exercise. We use them for all sorts of things, but I'll let Frankie explain the rest of it as he did it absolutely beautifully. He also shared with me some awesome photos from the early years of creating the Equisizer too. So go over to the Not Just a Pony Ride Facebook page. I'll share some of those and share some love for the Equisizer. Anyway, enough of me. Here's Frankie. Enjoy. Hi, Frankie. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Katie. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to share your story, your journey, and your wonderful Equisizer with everybody today. Do you want to tell everyone who you are and kind of how you ended up here?
Sure. Well, it is a long story and it goes back quite a ways, but I was a professional jockey for many years. And many years ago, I had a racing accident where I had badly broken my leg and I needed some pretty significant rehab. And as a horse rider, that can be a little challenging. And in my case, with the injury that I had sustained, I lost mobility in my knee. And one of the most important things as a jockey is to absolutely have your knees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing some rehab and looking at some things, and it was questionable that my surgeon at the time, he was concerned that I may not be able to get that flexibility back, which could have been career-ending. And at this point in my life, I was 17, 18 years old in that range, and I was on top of the world as far as my career was really going well. The timing couldn't have been worse, and I could not accept the idea of not being able to pursue what I'd already, achieved a lot of my goals already, but to pursue a career that was very promising. So I thought, well, there's nothing you look into a rehab center, even today, a state-of-the-art rehabilitation center, there's nothing that you can do to simulate riding. So it made me mad enough that I did something about it. And so I made myself a horse, and I was able to mimic riding. I was able to simulate what I needed to do to ride a racehorse. And try to make the story a little shorter. It worked amazingly well for me. It was a very crude version of a horse, what I created, but it worked very, very well. And when I made my comeback, which I did successfully, and I got back to riding, got full flexibility back into my leg, and I was also able to. I learned that I was also able to not only get fitter and stronger and recover, but I also was able to improve my form and my technique just by rehearsing and practicing and simulating riding races. And that's kind of like how it all started. I had no intention of starting a business. My intention was to get back to racing in my career, and which I did. But then other jockeys, of course, they sustain injuries, and some of them don't get to ride enough for their fitness, and some of them are just trying to learn. It's the thing about a jockey, like how do you learn unless you ride races, and how do you ride races unless you know what you're doing? So it's kind of a catch-22. So it became a tool that fit like all these different categories for jockeys. Um, and so I had other jockeys for whatever reason. Maybe they were rehabbing, maybe they were trying to get fitter or stronger or better, or those that just wanted to practice. They started asking me if I'd make them a horse, and I put them off, and I didn't want to do it at the time. I was very busy, but I did love woodworking, and I kind of like, well, maybe at some point I'll get into it. And two of the at the time, two of the nation's top jockeys, which were Angel Cordero and Lippy Pinkai, both Hall of Fame jockeys, both of them on the top of their careers and their game, begging me to please make them a horse. And I thought, what is going on here? If these two guys, the two best jockeys in the world, are begging me, like, why do they need it? And they had their reasons. But they wore me down. Years went by, they wore me down, and so I made them a horse. It was still kind of crude, trying to figure out how to do it better than the one I had to make for myself. And I just told them, look, I'll do this for you as a favor, but leave it there. And then I had other of America and Europe's top jockeys finding out about them having. They asked me to make them a horse, and it just started piling on, and I had to do something about it. So in the later '80s, I started to surrender the idea that I think I got something here, and I need to do something about it. I am my garage making these horses, but I think there might be something bigger here, and I need to kind of pay attention. And so at that time, my wife and I we decided that maybe we need to start a business and set this up properly and go through the patent process and all that. And that was way back in the late '80s. So that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. That's an incredible story. Everything from your injury and rehabbing injury and coming back and riding, and then it just kind of went over like gangbusters and blew up for you, which is incredible. When for our audience, so there might be some people listening who don't know about what's called the Equisizer now. What was it called when you first started?
Well, I had a couple of names for him, but one was I named him after a racehorse that I loved. His name was Johnny Dance. We called him Woody. We called him all kinds of funny names, but Johnny Dance was always what I called him.
So where did the name Equisizer come from? And now, if you want to tell our audience a little bit, what is it now for you? And what is the Equisizer?
Well, that process when we were like, okay, we're starting a business, and so my wife and I were like, well, what do we want to call our business? And I like the name Wood and Horse Corporation. It kind of just, for me, it rolled off my tongue, and I thought it's appropriate. I make wooden horses, so that became the name of the company. But the product, I was thinking, well, I need to think about. I want to have it equestrian related, and also not just racing focused. I thought, there's a lot of things with the word equine, and as far as exercising, I wanted to combine those two. So like equestrian exercise. So I came up with Equisizer, and that kind of rolled off my tongue as well. So I liked it.
Super clever.
Yeah. The crossover, which you may be wondering, like, how did it go from horse racing and to where it is now, and or what was the transition? It was an interesting story, and it was a therapeutic riding program right at the years ago before it was PATH, when it was the North American Racing Academy, or for the handicap. I can't even remember how what it was called anymore. The NARHA, before it changed the path. There was a small center out in Long Island, and I was living in New York at the time. I was racing at the New York circuit at the time, and someone had a child that cerebral palsy that was really wanting to be a part of the program, loved the horses, but would have anxiety attacks when I would try to mount him onto the real horse, and also he wasn't getting like proper stretching. So there was this whole process that was causing an issue with this young boy, and they'd asked, "Hey, would you bring one of your horses, one of the Equisizers, out to our farm, and let's try to stretch him and maybe help give him a little more confidence." And I thought it was a great opportunity to see what this was all about. And my wife and I, um, we went out there with an Equisizer, and this boy went from a wheelchair, and they carefully picked him up, and they put him on one of my wooden horses, and he was smiling, and he was loving it, like having a good time. And 5 minutes went by. He was like pointing at the real horse. He was pointing at the horse that was saddled for him, and he was ready to go. And the transition was amazing. It was like a flower opening up, right? It was beautiful. And they were like, "Wow, this was amazing." And it was just the simple process of having that transition. Instead of going from the wheelchair to the mounting ramp, he went from the wheelchair to the Equisizer, and he rode that for just a few minutes, enough to loosen him up, and then he felt brave, and he went over and got on the real horse. And one of the instructors there was also a physical therapist, and he was like looking at me like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." We really got something going on here. And have you considered, like, there was a conference coming up, and he asked me if I would consider going with him with the Equisizer and introduce this to the therapeutic riding world. And that's how that all started.
Wow.
Which was, it was incredible.
See, look at you go. Another just word of mouth thing. Like we need to borrow that for a minute. And then it turned into, it needs to be a staple in so many therapeutic riding centers. And I have to say, we love our Equisizer. We use him every single day almost. He's out there working for us. And a lot of our participants, they give our participants that wouldn't be able to ride a live horse quite yet, the opportunity to participate and be in the barn and be a part of all of it and reap all those benefits. So we love ours at Hetra. We have two, actually.
Yes. I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Yes.
That's great.
So tell me about then kind of that process where you started to get a little bit bigger and people were wanting them, and how did that production start, and, how did that process go? Did you, what's it called? Make a patent on the Equisizer and that type of thing?
Yeah, we went through the whole process for the legal protection, the patent process, and it's a bit grueling. It's very expensive. It was a bit complicated on some things, but the fact that there wasn't much out there in the world already as mechanical horse wise, it was just making sure, going through all the research, and it wasn't simple. It was a lengthy, expensive process, but we got it to the point where we had the protection in place, and so that was fine. That was fine. We got it to that point. But then when we were like thinking, okay, we have this concept, we have this product. Now you're thinking, and I had some people trying to advise me, because I still want to ride races. I still want to be a jockey. I still have that career going on. And people are like, "Oh, we're going to hook you up with this wood shop out in Long Island, and they're going to learn how to make the horses for you." And da, 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 da. It was hard because it seemed like a simple process. Oh, let's get some funding together. We'll get some partners, and we'll get this thing rolling. And Well, it's been 30, it's like 33 years ago. I'm still building horses. I'm still making them myself.
Really?
A lot of people don't know that. Yeah. Uh, I never could find, it was complicated. One, it was a handcrafted thing. Craftsmanship is one thing. The quality and durability is another thing. So everything that no one could help me figure out how to keep the cost down and at the same time build this product and hire the special skills that would be able to do all the parts, put it all together, and then um, like well, are you going to sell 1,000 of these things, 1,000 a year, or and no, I probably it's a new concept and people are people really weren't completely sold on the concept. In fact, I still get a lot of resistance of people will say things, well, that's dumb, just ride a real horse, and I get it. People sometimes are very cruel,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, it was just hard to put all the pieces together, and now officially building horses for over 33 years, I haven't found a simple way yet to try to keep the costs to a minimum and yet put out this product and meet the market that the demand, which I've always been able to kind of keep up with. Up until the last couple of years, but I've pretty much been able to maintain and balance making a living and keeping the cost as affordable as possible. It's complicated.
This episode of the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast is sponsored in part by
Equiforce. Equiforce is a database that allows you to track every facet of your organization, from horse, donor, and volunteer management to scheduling, grant tracking, incident reports, and tracking participant progress too. This is not a one-size-fits-all setup. Instead, Equiforce personally works with you to learn how your facility functions and takes note of your specific terminology so that they can create a unique system to match the needs of your organization. And of course, Equiforce provides an ongoing training and support so that your database can grow with you. Visit them at www.equiforce.com. That's EQUI-FORCE.com. So did you have anybody that helped you, or mentors, or did you hire anybody to help you through kind of that process? Because I'm thinking about myself, if I were to decide tomorrow I want to, have this product and sell it, I would have no idea to know how to start a business and produce something and keep all the costs low while still paying yourself, right? Because that has to be something that you have to keep in mind.
Yeah. In the early years, I did invest my own money, my retirement, and I had a promising career as a jockey. As a jockey, you need to put 100% in to get anything out of it. It's a tough job. And it's a tough job. I mean, some people get lucky and come up with something ridiculous and like a pet rock and boom, they're millionaires. And then here's something that could offer quality to life for horse riders of all kinds. And how do you get it there? How do you and then a lot of people will say, generally when you start a business, first 4 or 5 years can be difficult and challenging. This was never one of those businesses, and doing it for 30 years, I could honestly say it's just up until the last maybe 5 years has it become a decently running lucrative business that it's not constantly losing money. That part was always very challenging, but I never wanted to give up on it. And in fact, now I'm just as determined as ever. At least I'm not, I'm making a living. I am paying my helpers, and we're all moving forward and expanding the business. So
yeah. We're glad that you continue to do it because we love our Equisizers and we think everyone should have one. So we're glad for that. Do you have a pretty good staff now that helps you, or who helps you run the ship?
I have several part-time that do special things. So like some carpentry, I have some office help. My sister works for me now and she does some of the things. Everything is handmade. So, and nothing's done in quantities. Like most companies companies can do something in hundredths or something. We're doing things in fours. So when I do the wood carvings, like I do the wood carvings myself, I've never been able to find somebody that can do wood carvings, or at least, that could do them maybe as fast or as inexpensive as I could do myself. So I end up just keeping up with that. And then there's the upholstery, which is all the carpeting and stuff. I still do all that myself. There's the finishing, the painting, the finishing. I still do majority of that myself. And the wood finishing, the elite models that are customized, send me photographs of their horse or something, and I airbrush their faces and do all the finishing touches. Those things I still all do myself, which is still probably the most time-consuming major part of the building process. We do try to, at this time, I'm averaging probably about 6 to 8 units a month, which, over the course of the year, somewhere around 70 horses I can make. So trying to improve on that now as we speak.
Yeah. And I think that's finding a fine balance. How many times have we gotten a product that in the early years was very handmade and the owner creator had their hands in every little bit of it. And then they started to mass produce or, do things like that. And then the quality goes down. And I think spending the time like you do to ensure all of those steps are happening and you're doing them yourself. And that is what continues to make a quality product that everybody wants. And I don't know if you have any advice for people that are trying to find the balance between, if I mass produce, I can save money, but quality. And I feel like that's a balancing act that is really, really hard.
It's totally hard because when there's quantity, you're trying to get the cost down, you're trying to get more product out. That there's sacrifice in there. I try to compare this to a piano manufacturer. Because if you buy a piano, it's going to be in your house. Could be in your house, and you pass down to your kids, and so it's an instrument. It has to be quality product. It's not going to be something you see sitting on the curb too much when people are done with it. And that's kind of like my philosophy with the Equisizer. I want it to be high quality. It's got to be durable. It's got to last for a very long time. And when I sell an Equisizer, it could be going. I just sent one to Australia, for example. They're going to Japan. They're going to parts of Europe. They're not just going down the block. Or my customers, most of them aren't within 500 miles of me. So they're going all over the world. And someone receives it, they invest all this time and effort into purchasing it, and you want it to last. You don't want them to have any issues. And if it is an issue, it's something that can be easily fixed and keep them going. So that's a tough balance, and I've been able to do that.
Yeah. And I think, do you have any advice for anyone? I know there's lots of people, even in the therapeutic riding world, we have all this, a different adaptive tack and, all of these different things that we can do to help our riders be more independent and be more successful with just a few minor changes. But there's a lot of products that we can invent or things that we can make. I'm an occupational therapist and we make something probably every day, like wrap some foam in this and put this here. And, so there's lots of people that have great ideas, but I think are maybe fearful to go out on the limb and say, like, I am going to turn this into a business. I'm going to invent this, or whatever it is. But sometimes I think the equestrian world can be a tough nut to crack too, because we're all so knowledgeable and have been doing it a long time. And we have a lot of pride in that. Do you have any advice for people that are looking at that or see that as a feat?
That is so challenging because when you are dealing imagine that, we talk about barn drama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where if you have a barn full, everybody, well, I do this with my horse and I do this with my horse, or I like to use this saddle, or I don't like that bridle, or I don't like that bit. There's just so much, so many opinions and
Mm-hmm.
so much going on. You can only pray for consensus on something. Being a horse person, there's so much time involved already. It's time consuming. So if you're going to branch off and do something that it would take your time away from the barn and what you specialize in, I can see people getting discouraged really easily.
Mm-hmm.
But in my case, if it's something you really believe in, going back to the story, the first time when I saw a kid go from a wheelchair and to the Equisizer to a horse, that was just the first case. and I keep seeing that. I see it every day in what I do, and I love what I do. I see it every day. I get emails and letters, photographs of these amazing stories, and it's not just therapeutic riding. I know somebody that maybe they had a car accident and they can't mount their horse anymore, or they were told they can never ride again, or the scenarios are just it's just incredible. I'm building a horse right now for a woman, and it like brings tears to my eyes because she was an avid horsewoman. She rode her whole life. She was an instructor. She's got a farm. She's got a barn full of horses. But unfortunately, she's got COPD and she can't ride anymore. And the Equisizer was the solution, a solution to that, and it'll help her with her core. It'll help her health wise. It's stories like that's why I do what I do. And anytime I get discouraged, I get something just keeps me going and driving to keep doing this. If it's one thing, if it does something for you, but if it starts doing something for others, you might be onto something, and you're on the right track.
Yes, that was perfect. I couldn't have said that better myself. I think that impact and keeping that in front of you all the time too, do you have like a board or something where you put like inspirational things to keep it in front of you all the time?
I do. I have a couple of things that inspire me or remind me. I have a customer corner in my office where customers will like send me something, photographs or with their Equisizer or thanking me or letters.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, the thing, with what you do and what Hetra does, people will praise me for what I do. Like, I'm like, nah, I just make a horse, and people do it like you do amazing things with them. So I just want to thank you for all you do as well, and everybody there and your staff. So I know. My wife started her own program. She passed. We lost her several years ago in a car accident, but she was PATH certified, and we founded our own program here in our town. And it all started because of what she saw with the Equisizer. She's like, man, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to. So she got certified, and we got her nonprofit started, and yeah, she did it, and that became her passion, the love of her life was our program.
How many? Just think how big the tree and the branches of how many lives that the Equisizer has touched from one reason to another. It's really, really cool.
Thank you. Yes, mm-hmm. I feel blessed. Thank you.
Yes. So where can people find you or reach you if they want to know more or are interested in ordering an Equisizer of their own, Frankie?
Well, we have our website, which is probably the best resource. Starting there and going through the information to kind of understand what it is, what it costs, the process of ordering. Right now, we do have a pretty long lead time, but the website is equisizer.com. However, it's hard to spell. I can't blame them. It's challenging, but it's EQUIZER.com. But funny, I got the domain names that you could spell it wrong, and sometimes it still goes to the website. So,
no way.
So, yeah. I thought I got to do something about this. So I have it spelled. I can't remember the misspellings I got, but it's funny.
It's a super clever name, but yeah, difficult to spell. I could see that. So you got ahead of that.
Yeah, I tried to get ahead of it, but yeah, that's the best resource. Yeah, and I love providing information and all the details, and my philosophy is that the Equisizer. I'm not a salesman. It's not my nature, but I love what I do, and it's what I call a very organic piece of equipment. It's more on the primitive edge of things. Like it's not lights and buttons. It's not a simulator, but it offers you the essentials that allows the riders to do the simulation and in the work you do, some of the things you can get creative with. But it is the general exercise that utilizing the core and the different stretches you can do. They really do apply to riding real horses. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, I am happy to answer questions about how we use our Equisizer. Just let me know and reach out here or in the Not Just a Pony Ride Facebook page. I'm going to be posting some pictures of us using our Equisizer and some other things into that group as well. And Frankie sent me some wonderful photos of the early days of the Equisizer being built and all kinds of things. So I'll be sharing those there. And so hop on and interact with us there too. All right, Frankie, do you have anything else? Parting words for our audience here?
I just wanted to thank you and the entire adaptive riding community for their open arms with the Equisizer. I'm glad to have this opportunity to not only for people to kind of learn a little bit more about the Equisizer, but also to understand where it all comes from and what's behind it. And it's not just a pony ride. It's not just a wooden horse. So that's kind of cool.
I love
Thank
that.
you for the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, we love our Equisizer, and I feel like I love it so much more now that I know all the heart and soul and things that were poured into it and are continued to be poured into it every time you make one. So
thank you so much, Katie.
All right. Well, we'll see you down the road, Frankie. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode. Until the next one launches, stay connected to our community by joining the Not Just a Pony Ride Facebook group. There, we share exclusive educational content, answer your questions, and review new and exciting developments for the EAS community. Don't forget, if you have suggestions for future episode topics or a lead on a great guest that you think our audience would enjoy, click on the link in the show notes or visit us at hetrauniversity.org. This podcast is presented by Hetra University, an educational arm of the Heartland Equine Therapeutic Riding Academy. Hetra University's mission is to provide high-quality educational offerings to our participants and the EAS community. If you'd like to help us work toward our mission, you can make a donation by visiting us online at hetra.org. Again, I can't thank you all enough for helping Hetra change lives one stride at a time.